This is the Moto G Stylus 5G 2022 disassembly. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you subscribe and follow me on Twitter so you'll be notified when I upload a new video. And if you need any tools, there are links in the description. To start off, we need to remove the SIM tray. Here's a better look at the SIM tray. Next, the stylus needs to be removed. At this point, we need to use a hairdryer or a heat gun to apply heat to the back plate to loosen up the adhesive underneath, and then we're going to use a plastic pry tool to pry the back plate off. Here's a better look at the plastic back plate. Next, the camera bezel needs to be pried off and removed. Now there are 17 Phillips screws which need to be removed. The top cover can now be lifted up and removed. The camera lens covers can be replaced by applying heat and gently prying them off. There are also numerous antenna lines drawn on this plastic cover which has light gray color lines, including the NFC antenna which is in the center. On the other side, there's some graphite film as well as the LED flashboard. Next, this graphite film needs to be peeled off, and this graphite film helps transfer heat. Now that we have access to the battery cable, we're going to disconnect that first. Once the battery cable is disconnected, we can proceed to disconnect the rest of the cables. There are two coaxial cables on the bottom right side of the board which need to be disconnected by popping them off. This copper tape covering the front-facing camera connector needs to be peeled off so we can disconnect and remove the front-facing camera. Here's a better look at the 16 megapixel front-facing camera. There's a single Phillips screw which is holding on the main board that needs to be removed. Now the main board can be removed. On the main board, there's an 8 megapixel ultra-wide lens, a 50 megapixel primary lens, and a 2 megapixel macro lens. The primary camera is the only one which has OIS or optical image stabilization. The camera connectors can be disconnected by just popping them off. There's a wide liquid damage indicator sticker here, and there's some copper tape on the front shields. There's also a secondary microphone on the top corner. The SIM card and memory card reader is located on the back, the proximity sensor is located on the top, and there's more copper tape on the back shields as well as some thermal paste. Once the copper tape is peeled back, we can see more thermal paste on top of the processor and a thermal pad on top of the RAM. Here's a better look with the thermal paste and thermal pad removed. Now the bottom speaker assembly can be lifted up and removed. There's some more graphite film on the speaker assembly. And here's a look at the speaker itself. This flex cable as well as the two other ends of the coaxial cable need to be disconnected from the subboard. There's a single Phillips screw which is holding down the subboard that needs to be removed. Now we can remove the subboard. There's a rubber gasket around the charger port and the headphone jack is located next to it. Looking at the other side, the primary microphone is located underneath the shield. When it comes to removing the battery, there are no pull tabs provided to help us pry the battery off, so we're going to have to use some isopropyl alcohol and apply some around the edges of the battery and let it sit there for about 30 seconds so it eats away at the adhesive underneath, making it easier to pry it off. Here's a better look at the 5000 mAh battery. Once the battery is removed, we can see this flex cable which connects the main board to the subboard, as well as the flex cable for the screen which is routed through an opening in the midframe. So if you need to replace the screen, you need to remove the back plate, as well as the camera bezel and remove the screws on the top cover, and then you remove that top cover, disconnect the battery cable and the screen cable, and then you'd pry your battery off, giving you access to the screen cable, You'd then have to heat up the front of the phone where the screen is to loosen up the adhesive underneath. You pry your old screen off, apply new adhesive, reapply your new screen, making sure you run the flex cable back to the opening in the mid-frame, and reassemble your phone. The cover for the stylus is held down with some adhesive, so if you want to replace that, you have to just gently pry it off. The vibrator motor is located on the bottom corner. There's some thermal pads on the frame underneath the speaker. There's a mesh filter over the speaker opening and a rubber gasket over the microphone opening. The flex cable for the power button and fingerprint reader, as well as the volume keys, are both routed through openings in the mid-frame. So if you need to replace those, you'd actually have to pry the screen off as well. The earpiece speaker is located on top, and that's also held down with some adhesive. And there's one more liquid damage indicator sticker on the frame, which sits underneath the SIM reader. For the repairability score, I give this phone a 4.5 out of 10. Now it's time to put the phone back together. Once everything's back in place, apply new adhesive and reapply the back plate. Flip over the phone, power it on, and you're done. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.